morning, everyone. Beth Sager with another Lex Local. It's in the hundreds now, which is really awesome. And today, this is going to be interesting because this is Andrew from Guild Chronicles, and I walked into his office and I have no idea what he does. None. I can't even make sense. I mean, it looks interesting, but I guess you're going to have to tell us.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I am a game designer primarily. So I had a Kickstarter to create a tabletop role-playing game. So if you've ever heard of like Dungeons and Dragons, it's something like that.
Okay.
I had a Kickstarter a little more than a year ago with the goal of creating this game. So it'll be like a 500-page rule book with art and all this stuff.
All right.
That teaches you how to play the game. But then before the game, my real goal was creating something that was a tool for learning. So I used the game that I made to teach social emotional skills, mostly with autistic teenagers, young adults, things like that. So it's
very interesting.
A really fun, dynamic way to learn skills and develop connections and to play together.
Okay, so I'm a neophyte when it comes
you're good.
So the game is pieces. It's not online.
Correct.
It's like a real game.
Yep. So we gather around a table.
Okay.
I think that's one of the strengths of it. I think having that face-to-face connection, getting out of the house, having that time together is really important. Pieces move around on the board. There's battles with all sorts of creatures. Dice are used to sort of determine the outcomes. So there's a random element which makes it fun and dynamic. But unlike a lot of board games, you're all working together. So
I was just asking.
Yeah, so
collaborative.
I play the role of the facilitator of the story. So I come up with like a narrative, a story that they're going to explore, quests for them to go on, people for them to interact with, monsters for them to battle, and then they are all working together as heroes in that world, exploring that story and kind of deciding what to do.
I like that.
It's really fun.
I like that. It's way better than the knockdown Monopoly
Yeah,
games.
exactly.
So, and what's the game called? Do you know
It is called Guild Chronicles.
It's called
Very
Guild Chronicles.
creative name for my company.
All right. That makes more sense. And like, how did you get into this? Have you always?
Yeah, so I started playing games like D&D when I was like 10 years old. So back in the 90s. And as I was playing them, I built a lot of friendships around it. I made a lot of good connections. And in my teenage years, I realized like a lot of the reasons I was doing well on my SATs, a lot of the reasons I felt so confident and had leadership skills was because of games like this. So I sort of realized that through the play I had kind of learned, and then I got it in my head that I might be able to like create that opportunity for other people, so.
Okay, so this has always sort of been, has it been on the back burner? Did you have like, an engineering job or something in between, like a lot of people?
So my undergraduate was at art school. I went to Mass College of Art.
Okay.
I kind of meandered through 7 years of an undergraduate there.
There you go.
I ended up in art education. I've always liked to teach. I've always liked working with young folks. And then I think after Mass Art, I was trying to get a job. I found teaching assistant jobs in Wayland and other towns. And I got to work with autistic kids, and I really, really liked it. And one of the first kids that I worked with had this passion for games like D&D, but he had no one to play with. He had trouble. None of his friends could figure out the rules as quickly as he did. But at his school, they were open to the idea of me using that as a way to connect with him. So we started playing games like that, just him and me, and then we slowly brought other kids into the group. And he went from hating school to really enjoying it and being a part of it. So it was around then that I realized this could be a weird job. Like it's hard to describe it as a job, but I got my master's at Lesley University in education. And then right after that, I got a job at Mass General Hospital's Aspire program. So it's up in Lexington, up by the Bedford border at the Lurie Center for Autism. And there, my job was really, about 7 years, my job was to facilitate learning through activities, and a lot of the activities we did were games. So that's actually, for 10 years I've been playtesting this game and using it. Yeah, so 10 years of playtesters.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how does it work now? Do you have people come here? So
this, I have a small private practice here. So that could be afternoon groups, so after school, a group of teenagers comes over, we play the game for an hour and a half, and then that game that we're playing, I'm trying to work in goals or themes that they can sort of learn through. So I'm never sitting there lecturing them, telling them about social skills. That's awful.
Right. That's hard to teach.
But it's an invitation for them to come and learn. I'm also running workshops this summer, which is a new thing that I'm doing.
Okay.
A lot of the kids I've been working with, kids that are like in their 20s now,
Right.
are kind of like, they're basically graduated from like most of my programming, but they're still very interested. So I brought them on as interns. They help me with designing the game and like coming up with new parts for the game. And now we're working on some workshops to help them sort of develop their skills as storytellers so they can facilitate the game, or as game designers so they can make their own games in the future. It's doing a lot of weird stuff. I also do some one-on-one mentoring.
Okay.
I think some kids that are like homeschooling are looking for more structure or different kind of activities, things that they just can't pick up on their own. So I've realized there's some possibilities for like game design or art and things like that with them. That can be like something that I'm doing.
Okay.
Yeah, and like a kind of unschool experience, but kind of getting that same goal of learning, just in like a different one-on-one kind of fun setting.
So do you think this is sort of a never-ending game?
Yeah.
Like that you will just create more worlds and more...
Yeah, I think that's kind of how I see it. So I did not know how hard it was to make a 500-page book when I started this.
Okay.
My wife is my graphic designer, my art lead on this. She works over at the high school. She teaches digital art over there.
Oh, okay.
And it's just a bigger project than we thought. So we're not jumping to make the next book right away.
Right.
And it turns out publishing tabletop role-playing games is not a profitable business.
You're kidding!
It's a niche audience. But it's a rewarding experience. So I think I'm seeing the game design side of it as sort of supplemental to the education and the therapeutic work that we're able to do with it. But I would be very bored if I didn't get to make games. So we're definitely going to keep making games. But I think the more that I can involve kids that have come up through my program and their internships, and the more that they can be a part of it, I think that's even more powerful, and they're more creative than I could ever be, and that's a good thing.
Okay. Do you have to read the book before you play the game?
So usually, if if like 5 people are getting together to play the game, one of them has read the book as hard as they can and tries to understand all the rules. And everyone else there really only needs to know a little bit, and they'll sort of get help navigating the rules. The rule book ends up being 500 pages, but I think I could probably teach the game in like half an hour.
Okay.
The basics. And then there might be some rules that people get really excited to learn in the future, but you don't need... I actually regret making a 500-page book. I think...
So tell me, like, what would be a rule that is like on page 350, right? Like...
So there's like... I think with a game like this, you try to model, like with the dice and the rules, like any kind of scenario you could imagine. So imagine you're going on an adventure.
Right.
You want to climb up a cliff to kind of get up to the top.
Okay.
The rules make it very clear what dice you would roll to do that. Some characters will be better at that. Some won't be as good at that, depending on how you decide to build your character. So those rules are very easy. You find those at the beginning of the book.
Okay.
But then some stuff like, what if I want to try to create this magic item that's really complicated? Like, how do I do that? That's a much more specific rule.
Okay.
Almost no one will need to know that rule. But if you're like me and you like really complicated games, the book gives it to you. So you can figure those things out.
So you could do it with some basics.
Exactly.
Oh, fun. And you use all these dice?
So my game uses 4-sided dice, which are these little pyramid-looking ones. 6-sided dice, the conventional ones. This is an 8.
Yeah.
That's a 10.
That's a 16.
I don't use 20. That's a 20.
20? Okay.
I do use 12. That's these guys.
Oh. Huh. More
So
than Yahtzee.
More than Yahtzee. Less than Dungeons and Dragons.
And then what are these?
So these are figurines. So I find some people when they play games like this, they just imagine it in their minds.
Okay.
I really enjoy having like a beautiful board set up like this. Is really immersive. It draws you into the story.
Right.
So I buy these little miniatures mostly over at Omar's down the street.
Nice.
I paint them. That's a stress management thing that I do for myself.
Okay.
Art school, right? 7 years of art school well spent.
So is this little monster in the game or just a representative of the game?
Exactly, yeah. So that's a representative of the game. You've got it.
Cool.
That's actually, that guy's name is Paul. He was
Paul.
My first year with interns. They loved him. We named him Paul. And for a while, he ran my social media. He was my little mascot.
Who's this?
That's an owl bear.
Owl bear.
That's exactly what it sounds like.
Okay, owl bear. All right.
Whenever I go to like a convention, when I travel to do something like that, I'll buy a couple of these to like remember that, and then just to add more to my collection.
Fun.
Paul is Paul is an old one I've had for a long time.
Nice. So what else do we need to know?
I think talking just a little bit about why I think something like this is like a good way to learn. I think I learned a lot about sort of the effects of like conventional social skills learning for autistic kids. And a lot of the times they feel like they're being told all the things that they're doing wrong. That's kind of the experience that they have, especially as adults, like reflecting on their education. They just feel like everyone's telling them that you're doing this wrong, you're not making enough eye contact, you're interrupting too much. And I don't know, just as I learned that that was the experience of many people a little younger than me, I wanted to find a better way to do it. And I think I'm neurodivergent myself. My mind does not work like most minds. And I think I've sort of come to understand that there's different ways of communicating, just like different cultures have different ways of communicating. Autistic culture is a little bit different. So when I've got a group of autistic kids around the table, they've got their own ways of socializing, and they're doing a great job with that together.
Okay.
And sometimes I need to code switch to kind of talk to them in their way a little better. And sometimes they'll code switch to help me understand a little better. But I think in the past, the expectation was always on, autistic kids or neurodivergent people to try to turn themselves into something that looks like a normal person, which is a terrible, terrible phrase, right? Exactly.
Terrible.
So, but basically asking them to code switch, like, I want you to fit into my culture. I want you to talk to me the way that I understand best. So when we play, my goal is never to make them seem normal. It's the opposite. I think as they become more confident, as they become more connected with other people, as they find this passion that they have, then they just start to feel better about themselves and have these positive experiences. Lots of them are working for the first time with me, which is really cool. And I think the impact is sort of on the, this is making me feel good side. And then once they've got that, they're better at advocating when they need something. And they're also more capable and confident to sort of code switch when they need to. Like if they know they're going to a job interview, they're going to go through the motions that they're expected to go through, just like I do, right? And those aren't natural to me.
No.
When we met, we shook hands, but that's not normal for me, but we do it because we expect it. So yeah, I think this is, it's not about trying to fix anybody. It's about trying to give people an outlet that's creative. It's letting them explore things about themselves. It's letting them socialize with people that will understand them and build community around that. And then that confidence kind of can translate into just feeling better and happier and having better outcomes. And yeah.
Impressive.
Yeah.
Oh, well now we know. Guild Chronicles. Right here on Waltham Street in Lexington, Mass. You just never know what's behind these little closed doors.
Hiding up on the third floor.
Thank you.
I appreciate it so much. Thank you, Beth.